Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. About a week ago, I was lucky enough to get a key for Jagged Alliance 3 from Mount Games. I am 20 plus hours into the game, and a playthrough takes around 50 hours, so this is not a full review, but I am going to give you my impressions so far on the experience, starting with what I like. The mercenaries are the standouts of this game, and the amount of effort put into making them compelling is fantastic. The game starts with a brief cutscene that sets the stage for a local conflict you spend the course of the game resolving. Once that scene is complete, you load up the AIM website, which is the interface you use to look at your full selection of mercenaries. You don't create your own character. Instead, you lead a squad of up to 6 mercs through different combat scenarios in the game. There's a list of over 30 mercs spread out over 4 tiers. Each tier has mercs at higher levels, but as you will see, just because one of them is at a lower tier doesn't mean they are not the perfect choice for what you need. These characters all have their own personalities, and they constantly provide banter, both in and out of combat. Some of them are flat out hilarious, such as Steroid, who is clearly a parody of Arnold Schwarzenegger and repeats some of his most famous lines in ridiculous fashion. On top of this, some of the mercs know each other, and this can change the banter you experience as well. If you hire Fox, she will immediately ask you to hire a friend of hers named Wolf. Fox's banter has a lot of sexual innuendo, even by herself, but if Wolf is on the team, they make no secret how attracted they are to each other. On that same token, Fox cannot stand Steroid and might flat out refuse to join a team that he's on, regardless of how much money you give her. These types of interactions are spread throughout the game, and your playthrough can be changed significantly just based on the banter of those along for the ride. In this screen, you can only see their headshots, but in conversations, full body portraits come up, and many of them are well done in ways that reinforce the character's personality. Each merc also comes with their own mechanics. When you look at their portrait, you'll see a little icon next to it that tells you what this character's speciality is. Crosshairs represent marksmen, and of course they are highly skilled at shooting. Pistols, sniper rifles, assault rifles, shotguns, machine guns, submachine guns, and heavy weapons all fall under this category, so 2 mercs who are both skilled shots might have completely different mechanics. Obviously, these characters are very important on your team, and you'll probably have won at least 2 of them. A bomb icon means that the character is an explosive expert, and they can pick up explosive traps while dealing more damage when using grenades. They also have a significantly lower mishap chance, which determines whether or not your grenades actually go where you want them to go. Grenades are incredibly powerful and plentiful in this game, while explosive traps are everywhere, so you'll definitely want at least 1 on your team. The medical cross symbolizes a medic, and obviously this is someone who is skilled at patching people up. During combat, medics can use a bandage skill to heal allies. If a merc takes too much damage at one time, they'll get a wound, which reduces their max HP, and this cannot be healed during combat. Instead, on the global map, you can undertake an operation that halts the movement of your team and allows your doctor to heal anyone who needs help. The higher their medical skill, the faster the operation will complete. Medics are extremely important. Enemies are very aggressive and skilled in this game, so you'll want at least 1 medic on the squad. A hard hat signifies an all-rounder, somebody who isn't skilled in one particular area, but can potentially do multiple things. Keep in mind that mercs who are technically specialized are still capable of doing multiple things, such as Steroid, who has high rankings in marksmanship for shooting, but also has high strength, so you could technically make him a melee specialist as well. The Sheriff badge designates someone who specializes in leadership, which impacts your morale and how effectively you can train militia. In Jagged Alliance, you enter and take enemy territory, but when you leave, it's possible enemy units will deploy from nearby forts and attempt to take the territory back. Whether or not they are able to do that depends on how many militia you have trained to protect that territory. Training is another operation that takes time, so your team cannot move forward until it's completed, and it's beneficial to do it faster. Morale comes into play during combat, increasing when you kill enemies or do massive damage, while decreasing when the opposite occurs. Positive effects can do things like give you more action points, and there are multiple perks that are triggered when morale is high. In my experience, as long as you are using good tactics and not allowing the enemy to massacre you, keeping morale high is not terribly difficult, so I didn't prioritize having someone with leadership on the squad. Finally, a gear icon signals someone who is a mechanic, and this allows them to repair machines, strip machines for parts, pick locks, hack into technology for intel, and pick up non-explosive traps. Intel reveals useful information about places you are going to visit, such as backdoor access into enemy territory, high vantage points, or even where enemies are going to be. Parts can be used to repair your equipment, which is necessary because they will constantly degrade over time. And finally, locked chests or doors are everywhere. You absolutely need someone who can deal with them. So needless to say, you really want a good mechanic on the squad. But wait, that is not the end of what differentiates all these different mercs. To the right of the portrait section, you can see the character's stats and levels at the top. Below that is a section labeled as perks, but it's actually perks, talents, and traits all listed together. Each merc has their own unique talent, outlined in blue, and some of them make a big difference. Despite just being a recruit at the beginning of the game, in my opinion, Barry is your best explosives expert because he gets a talent that allows him to constantly work on crafting shaped charges, and he's the only character who can effectively use them. These explosive devices do twice as much damage as regular grenades, and they have a directional cone blast instead of the usual radius blast. Throughout the Merc list, you'll see other talents like this that are completely game-changing. Then there are traits, which are outlined in green. Traits are not unique, but they cannot be changed or added to, so each Merc has their own unique mix of traits. Some of them are game-changing, such as Blood, who has throwing, giving him extended range with thrown objects and reducing the action point cost on his first object thrown every turn, making him absolutely lethal with the unique throwing knives he always has available. Speaking of which, a handful of Mercs have unique equipment to help in the area they specialize in. After traits, the other icons are perks. Every time a character levels up, they can choose one perk, but which ones are available depends on your stat ranking and what perks you have taken previously. We will review the entire list of perks in a separate video, but I just want to note, when you are looking at the higher tier characters, they're higher levels so they have more perks, but lower tier characters can level up and get those same perks. Therefore, what really matters is the combination of talents and traits. That's what you use to decide how valuable a Merc actually is. I'll release a separate video covering each of your Merc options. Now, the obvious question is, what prevents you from just putting together a team of all the top tier Mercs? And the answer is money. Every one of these Mercs costs money, not only up front, but also on a weekly basis to stay on the team. Therefore, purchasing the contract of a higher tier Merc should be a well thought out decision because you have to consider whether or not you believe you'll make enough money to keep this person on your team. The legendary tier requires a donation for $20,000 before you can even pick up a mercenary contract, so it'll definitely be a while before you are ready for them if you even bother choosing one of them. You can try to fill out all 6 slots right from the beginning, but 4 is more than adequate to complete the first section, and then you could add 2 more once you are able to travel to the mainland. Once you touch down, it won't be long before you enter a combat scenario, and this is another area where the game really shines. A lot of the things you can do, your enemies are capable of doing as well, and in many fights they outnumber you by quite a bit. If you approach carefully, then stealth is an option, and if you isolate an enemy, you can stealth kill them without alerting any of their allies. Stealth attacks are not automatic kills, but sometimes even though you didn't kill the enemy, you'll surprise the group and it'll allow you to pull off one more attack. Once enemies are alert, they will all swarm into position. Your foes are very aggressive, but at the same time the AI is smart enough to know when it has great positioning. Consequently, you cannot just hang back and try to patiently wait for an enemy to come out of an entrenched area to pursue you. Instead, the game will force you to figure out how to deal with multiple foes who have the high ground, are well protected, or completely surround you. As you get further in the game, enemies will have higher level equipment, including rocket launchers that can devastate multiple characters at the click of a button. This makes combat a constant puzzle, where height, cover, and positioning all play a key factor in your survival. In my experience, just about all your offensive options are viable. Melee characters are lethal and have a grit system that lets them get extra temporary health from killing enemies. There's a constant influx of grenades, so having someone who uses them every fight is viable. And to no one's surprise, firearms absolutely tear enemies apart. What you do have to be careful about is too many party members who do the same thing. Ammo is scarce, so you don't want 3 characters who all use sniper rifles. Some combat situations are just too hot, and you don't want anyone rushing in, so be careful about having too many melee combatants. Other than that, I would say go crazy and things will work themselves out. Oftentimes, combat involves liberating a village, rescuing someone, or doing a quest for an NPC, so you have the opportunity to talk with a lot of people. Many of these dialogues are great because all of the characters in the game are fully voice acted, they get their own portrait, and many of them are just as colorful as your Merc companions. There are also persuasion dialogue options, but these are locked behind different stats depending on who you are talking to, so it doesn't seem feasible to create a character specifically for persuasion. The last thing I'll note that I really appreciate about this game is that load times are lightning fast. Depending on the difficulty you play, you might need to reload a lot and will definitely appreciate this. There is one aspect of the game I am neutral on. You have no ability to create your own mercenary. I love games with party members, but I also really enjoy having at least one character whose mechanics I am completely in control of. It would be really nice to design my own personal merc with a talent I selected in the system that has been provided. I put this in the neutral section because I realized it would be impossible to let you create a character that also had the awesome voices and personalities available among the selection. Also, I recognize this is how the game is meant to be played, and I don't want to knock it for being a different slice of RPG. Before we get into what I don't like about the game, let me remind you that the channel has a free Discord available for you to join, and the link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, I would also appreciate you hitting the like button. It really helps the channel out, and if you want to support this kind of content, please consider becoming a member of the channel where you will get access to full playthrough episodes. Alright, there are a couple of things about this game I am not a fan of, and the first is you are always racing against the clock. You can only hire mercenaries in 1 week increments, and once that contract is up, you must immediately make a decision about whether or not you can keep them. That means you need to constantly generate more money to just keep your team together. By mid-game, this is not as big an issue because you get diamond mines and other crucial pickups that provide a consistent income, making money less of a long-term problem. Before this, it's absolutely a huge concern, and you can put yourself in a situation where you've run out of time, multiple contracts have expired, and you can only hold on to a couple of team members, which might flat out end your playthrough. For those of you who have played this series before, you're probably used to all this and it won't be a problem. I prefer to sit back, take my time, explore all the systems, and slowly immerse myself into a game. So being forced to rush into the next enemy compound doesn't appeal to me personally as a gamer. The other issue I have is that depending on how you play, a lot of backtracking might be required. Circling back to the diamond mines, as I mentioned before, you'll get crucial points, and roaming enemy groups will try to take those points back, and when that happens, you either need to be right there to fight them, or you must have trained militia who will deal with them. Whether or not the militia is able to fend off this attack depends on how many you have trained. Once again, training militia eats into the time of your contract, so early in the game, it's not something you want to do repeatedly, but if your militia is too weak, you'll have to circle back to areas in order to defeat those roaming groups and keep your income flowing. I absolutely hate backtracking in games, and Jagged Alliance 3 is no exception. I especially don't like it here because it's not like you can really know how many militia you need in order to be able to permanently hold on to this place. So you could put quite a bit of effort into training militia only to have a massive group all of a sudden come out and just demolish the people that you've left there. That wraps up my review of Jagged Alliance 3. Again, I have had a great time with the game and think it's a ton of fun. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.